And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never set out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today, week 9 is upon us. We got conference races barreling towards the finish line. I mean, we still got a lot of college football left, but some huge key conference matchups this week. We got a top 25 Navy team, neutral site with another top 25 team. I like what we got this week. The slate to me, though, is a little bit tough. I had a tough time picking these preview games in terms of ATS. I also had a tough time finding bets that I really like. I also had a tough time finding dirty dogs. That is not going to stop us from performing. That's right. If you like the content here, please do a thing and like the video. Okay, that's kind of the rule we have here. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. Maybe consider following us. If you're on YouTube, of course, consider subscribing to us if you want to be here for more stuff. And like I said, the agenda. We got game previews. We got our dirty dogs, 10-point underdogs that have a chance of winning straight up. And boy, do you not want to be on that list because we've been smoking hot. Smoking hot. And then we got our best bets to wrap it up. So, CD, how are we doing? How are we feeling?
Fantastic. Like you said, this was a really tough week to kind of get into and prep for. I think we're learning a lot about these teams conference wise, and the fact that it was so hard to find our dirty dogs, so hard to find our board for the counter, means that not only is it supposed to be an underwhelming week, right? Not many marquee matchups going to go, but I think a lot could go down this week. These are the weeks of college football that make it so much fun because any given Saturday, so much can go on, so much can happen to the race of the conferences. And also, by the way, we're going to preview like we always do, 8 games this week. We're going to have our conference or our dirty dogs, like you said, and our best bets at the counter. If we don't preview, because we're not previewing a couple of notable games potentially in the Big Ten here. When I say notable, I mean more so nationally broadcasted, like the number one team in the country, hosting a ranked Illinois team, like where College Game Day is going, I believe, in Bloomington, Indiana. We like to preview the games that we really want to talk about. The games we really feel are going to be good games, are going to have massive impacts in these conference races and other broader college football aspects in general. But also, like, we want to hear from you guys too. If you guys wanted us to preview certain games in the next couple weeks, let us know in advance in the comment section, and we'll absolutely try to get to them as well. So you guys, as much as we love to choose the games, as much as we love to have our input and like what we think is going to be super important, we also want to hear from you guys as well. If you do want us to preview your team and your conference races, whatever it may be, let us know in the comments. Like always, we love interacting with you guys.
Second that. Let's just get right into it. We're going to start strong with the Sun Belt. Yeah. No, we're going to talk about the Sun Belt today because we kind of got a sneaky good game here going on in terms of the Sun Belt race. We got Georgia Southern traveling to Old Dominion. Georgia Southern is 2.5-point underdogs. Both teams coming off a huge win. Old Dominion beating Texas State at home, and Georgia Southern beating James Madison. Both wins, by the way, by each team, double-digit points. You got Old Dominion side. You got a new quarterback, Colton Joseph, kind of playing some good football right now. You got some elite defensive talent there for Old Dominion as well. Been on the positive side of some variance for sure on the defensive side of the football, and then Georgia Southern with J.C. French and Clay Helton and everything that they got there. Their offense is buzzing. Defensively, they cannot say the same, though. So, CD, where are you leaning here, right? And what kind of impact is this going to leave for the rest of the Sun Belt this year?
Yeah, I'll get into the impact part first. So these are obviously two teams in the Sun Belt East, and if you're not familiar with Sun Belt, this is still a division or still a conference that has divisions, and the winner of those divisions, East and West, play each other in a conference championship game that could potentially, like we said, lead to a potential group of 5 playoff spot or other bowl implications for college football's postseason. But this is a massive game in the middle of October, or I guess late October by the time this gets played. Georgia Southern 3-0 in conference. Old Dominion 2-1 in conference. Georgia Southern has tiebreakers over Marshall and James Madison, two teams that are fighting to get back into the conference race in the Sun Belt East. Georgia Southern with a win here would put themselves in the driver's seat to coast down the stretch there with at least a 2-game lead over the rest of their division. Holy cow, would that be massive, massive for our guys down there in southern Georgia, right close to Savannah there. Clay Helton, the coach there, obviously everyone remembers him from USC. JC French throwing the ball very well for our Eagles in the Sun Belt. I really don't know. Old Dominion obviously had a very tough out of conference schedule. Right, South Carolina on the road, Virginia Tech, Bowling Green as well. You could throw them in there.
They
In
play teams
addition,
tough.
they do, and they played them tough. They played them hard, and so their record overall is 3-4. But that does not tell the full story. As Georgia Southern, as Texas State learned in the Sun Belt, once they got into it, they have been really getting after it. Listen, I'm just gonna lean Georgia Southern here, even on the road, right? Even on the road, but I'll say Georgia Southern also. They're 5-2. Their losses are to Boise State, potential playoff contender, Ole Miss, right? Obviously, in the SEC, one of the more talented teams in the country. Their resume is looking very good as well. They're coming off a very nice win against James Madison. I'm gonna ride the hot hand. I'm gonna ride the hot hand there. Give me JC French. Give me this passing game. Going on the road, getting a midweek win. This is Thursday night, ESPN 2, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. local time there. I'll lay 2.5. Or I'll lay 2, right? We're picking at 2. Or just 2.5, excuse me. Georgia Southern plus 2.5 will be my pick there. Don't feel great about it. I think it's gonna be a big time game, but I do know I think the Eagles, and after a disappointing finish to the Sun Belt last year, very disappointing. I think they really want to emphasize on finishing hard, finishing good, and be able to kind of cement themselves in a real good position in the Sun Belt.
If JC French throws 3 interceptions against Old Dominion, they will not win this football game. They were able to pull out of a win against James Madison. A lot too. James Madison was 1 for 4 on 4th down. Right, some costly penalties also costed James Madison as well, and just inability to run the ball when they wanted to, and Barnett just lacking some efficiency in that pass game as well. I think Joseph adds a really interesting dynamic in terms of his athleticism back there that maybe Old Dominion didn't have before. Ever since he's kind of come in the game, Old Dominion's been playing better. I believe that they're going to go with Colton Joseph. I would hope that they do moving forward, and I think they got some decent talent on both sides of the ball. I do think Georgia Southern is too, and the reason why I say that Old Dominion's been on the beneficiary of some luck on the defensive side of the ball. 9 interceptions they forced this year, which by the way, JC French loves throwing interceptions. And you have a top 16 red zone defense as well in the country. A lot of bend but don't break there because you are allowing 400 yards per game on defense. It's very bend but don't break. And Georgia Southern has had one of the best red zone offenses in the entire country. Yeah, but with that being said, I'm on Old Dominion. I just like the way that they're playing football. I think both teams are playing good football right now. But I think Old Dominion, I don't know if the market's caught up with them necessarily. And I know you're probably being like, well, Georgia Southern's been like dogs in like almost every game they played, and they're still winning. It's like, yes, I mean they were dogs against Georgia State, they were dogs against James Madison, they were dogs against Boise State, right? And they seem to overperform, but I think the market's starting to catch up to them, and I don't know that the market's caught up to Old Dominion right here. I kind of like him in this spot. If you're going to give me JC French, who's been turnover prone in this Sun Belt ever since that Ole Miss game, kind of lacks an ability to take care of the football, and they also cough up the football a lot in terms of fumbling, and I know that that's a lot of variation there, but if you're not able to take care of the football against a team like Old Dominion, then I can't take you. So I like Old Dominion in this spot with the way Colton Joseph's been playing there. So, and obviously you have one of the best defensive players in the entire country over there. So
Obviously, real quick, I will say, in terms of little bit potential scary for Georgia Southern, I love the way their defense has been playing. Honestly, even last week, overcoming all those turnovers and the pick six as well. Like they played some really good defense. The only thing that worries me is we have seen them at times in the Sun Belt.
Oh, wait, sorry, Jason Henderson's not going to be playing this game. I forgot that he's been out.
I know it's brutal.
Doesn't hurt, but doesn't matter.
Don't matter. So Marshall, going back to Marshall game, they kind of got after Georgia Southern on the ground with their quarterbacks, right? They had over 200 yards rushing in that game, and their quarterbacks had almost 100 themselves. And that does wonder, for a guy like Colton Joseph, can he get after the ground like he has been the past couple Sun Belt games and really take advantage of that? I think maybe not. I think Georgia Southern takes care of the football. I think they played potentially some of the worst football they have offensively last week, through the air and just sloppiness. But they looked pretty good other than that, man. I feel good about this air. Jalen White running the ball well. Burgess is one of the better players in the Sun Belt receiving the ball. So, yeah, I know you're on the Monarchs there, but it is what it is.
And Cobb, I believe, is the other receiver there. Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
certain. Hope I'm getting that name right. But
Jalen Cobb.
no, I've liked Georgia Southern the way that they played football, but something about Old Dominion right now just speaks to me. It could be that they cashed my dirty dog last week, but yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Monarchs here. Moving on, let's get over to the ACC. Undefeated Pitt hosts Syracuse. Pitt is, I believe, 6.5-point favorites here. At least we're picking it at 6.5. Then you're going to see a lot of sixes out there. This is wild. If you were to tell me that Pitt was going to be top 10 points per game, 8th in total yards per game, 12th in passing yards per game with Eli Holstein at quarterback before the season, I would have said, you are out of your dang mind. I would have been like, what? Who, what, where? I was convinced that Eli Holstein stunk. But guess what? Sometimes you get yourselves in a situation. You bring in a new offensive coordinator like Cade Bell, and all of a sudden, you got a quarterback who goes from rags to riches all of a sudden, just 1 year. And have I loved every part of Pitt and what they've done this year? No. Do I like that they've had to come back in some games this year? No, maybe I don't. But they get them at home, which I think is a big deal because a lot of weird stuff happens there in the Carrier Dome. But here's my thing. Give me Syracuse plus 6.5 here, and I'll take them to win straight up here. Pitt is going to lose at some point. Okay, their secondary, it's been leaky last year. It's been leaky this year. Okay, Kyle McCord and those athletes there, Pena, looking Hatcher, Gadsden. And finally, the last couple of weeks, I feel like they've run the ball better than maybe they have, at the beginning of the season.
Committed to running the ball, right?
Yeah, I think this is a completely different offense than we've seen. And, as I keep saying this, I didn't originally have it on my best bets, but might be adding it later. If that hits 7, obviously that's a take for me. But yeah, I'm gonna take Syracuse right here. I just like them in this spot, dude. I know it's on the road. I know Pitt's been finding ways to win football games. I'll take Syracuse to win, and I'll also take them to cover in this game. I think Kyle McCord's going to have another one of his lights out performances. It's just really turnovers, and in some games, it's been his fault. But, in other games, it's kind of been some miscommunications with some receivers. I still think they're super talented back there. I just defensively they've struggled, right? And that is the concern. I feel like teams like UNLV put up some serious points on you, but you've also been able to stop some pretty good quarterbacks in some instances. It's kind of on and off. The defense is a little bit inconsistent. I just think I like Syracuse in this spot right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride with you there. Like you said, if it goes over 7, you'll be getting a tweet from us for sure. So make this your reminder to follow us on Twitter, get those post notifications on for us to make sure you don't miss that line. But also, yeah, the reasons why I'm on Syracuse, just like you said, at some point Pitt's going to lose. And yes, Eli Holsting has been fantastic. And even last 2 weeks ago, right? Both these teams had bye 2 weeks ago against Cal at home. He didn't look great, and they still won. They still won with their changeup, which was pretty impressive. Desmond Reed looked very, very good. But I think Syracuse really gets after them offensively. Kyle McCord has been awesome, right? Even though against North Carolina State a few weeks ago, they didn't finish all these drives. They put up a ton of points, a ton of yards, and it really gave them. I know it's not a great defense, but they really gave them a lot of fits. Yeah, I feel good about that. I love that Syracuse. This is obviously a midweek game, not midweek, but it was Thursday game. So obviously there's no schedule dynamics because both these teams are on bye, so you don't have to really factor that in too much. Yeah, I think Syracuse is a good football team. Right, they're 2-1 in
I do too.
conference. They're still fighting. They got a pretty easy schedule, right? Pretty easy schedule. I think they're going to take advantage of that. Looking past Pitt, man. I mean, not that any of these games are just automatic chalk wins, but I think they feel pretty good about what they can do in November if they can get there. And that obviously starts with Pitt.
So this thing's probably not going to get to 7 from what I just realized. Yeah, I think I'm going to swap this one on my bets with one of my other ones. So I guess if you're listening to this, one, first of all, check out our best bets. If you're listening to it in a cut up, but yeah, I think I'm adding this to my best bets. I'm gonna swap it out actually because I had a zinger that I didn't really love, but I had to get to 5. Can't have 4. Don't like pushing on a week. Yeah, I think
No.
I'm gonna swap this one out. Give me Syracuse plus 6.5.
Listen,
I just convinced myself.
I will say this in terms of for ways to Pitt to win this game. Obviously, Eli Holstein has to take care of the football. They have to get Mumfield and Bartholomew, the tight, and all these guys involved. But Desmond Reed was awesome a few weeks ago. And if you go back to what Syracuse had to go on the road, obviously across the country, but against a UNLV team with Jaden Thomas, Haj Malik Williams, and those guys, and they kind of were efficient running the football, over 5 yards per carry in that football game. That, to me, if you're Pitt and you're telling me that you're running the ball well, and Eli Holstein doesn't turn the ball over, I feel pretty good about your chances, to get out of there with a win. Obviously, you don't care if you cover or not, but I say I will. And you do too, obviously, going to be on your best bets at the counter. Yeah, I think Pitt run the ball, take care of the football. Eli Holstein use those weapons, but I just think you're going to have to outscore Syracuse. And I trust Kyle McCord in this game more than I trust Eli Holstein. And that's not a knock against Holstein. That's just because the reality of how good Kyle McCord has been, especially if they can get that running game going. Like you said, LaQuint Allen has looked like LaQuint Allen, the guy that we expected to see coming in the season. They have really kind of turned him loose. And we saw Marion Hampton a couple weeks ago from North Carolina really get after Pitt. And obviously, he's one of the best running backs in the country. I feel the same or similar about LaQuint Allen in terms of his talent and his ability for Syracuse to move the ball on the ground. I think a similar impact can happen in this football game. Yeah. The over will be interesting to take here, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this football game. Thursday night, too. Everyone's going to be watching Thursday Night Football, whatever. Nah. Syracuse and Pitt. That's where you need to be. ESPN, 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central Time. Boom.
Let's go over to the Mountain West into a game that this week potentially has more college football playoff implications than any other game we could possibly talk about this week. Boise State is heading over to Las Vegas to play UNLV. Both teams playing fantastic football. Both their losses. Boise State lost to Oregon in a barn burner, right? Just lost that. Wasn't able to throw the ball effectively at the end of the game. UNLV loses to Syracuse in a game that, we'll say it. I know we just bet on Syracuse, but UNLV should have won that game. UNLV should have won that game. Penalty, dropped interception. A couple things happened. At the end of that game, UNLV definitely could be undefeated heading into this game right now. And I'm looking at teams that are both top 5 in scoring offenses in the country. They're both top 5 in rushing yards per game in the entire country. And they're both holding teams in the opposing run game pretty well. Now, we did see LaQuint Allen kind of tear up UNLV a little bit there, but to say that Boise State's defense is good would be a criminal misrepresentation of what they are, because they have not been good. I know Spencer Danielson is a defensive guy, but he has not gotten it done on that side of the football and has benefited a lot from a particular player whom I've taken, well over a minute to address, by the name of Ashton Jeanty, who is absolutely unbelievable at football. And it will be amazing because there are going to be Heisman Trophy voters that are going to get to watch this football game and actually evaluate Ashton Jeanty based on watching him play a game. Because we know that Heisman voters aren't staying up and watching those Mountain West games. They're not. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Ashton Jeanty. I'm excited for Boise State. I'm excited for the Mountain West. And, I guess Pac-12? I don't know. We'll talk about that another time.
We'll just celebrate the Mountain West for what it is right now.
Exactly.
Let them have their flowers. Right now, it is potentially the most important G5. I know you got the Army and Navy doing their thing down there in the American, but these, like you said, these two teams are primed for playoff candidacy, right? And the talent is there. The stars are there. You mentioned the guys on the Boise State side. I want to highlight a couple guys on UNLV. Haj Malik Williams, since taking over from Matthew Sluka, has been awesome. And he's given them a different dynamic throwing the football. He's completing over 70% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. That is going to be massive in this football game. You want to give your defense as little opportunities that they have to tackle Ashton Jeanty as possible, right? And also, you want Boise State to be playing catch-up. We have not seen them play catch-up really since Oregon in the end of that game. And it's just, right? So it's going to be different. and you get them off their schedule, off what they want to do, running the football, grinding out the games, and kind of just suffocating your defense throughout 4 quarters, and also waiting for Ashton Jeanty to break a couple tackles, and boom, he is gone. And also Ricky White, man. No one else is more grateful for Malik Williams than Ricky White, man. He has been the beneficiary. 9 touchdowns on the year so far, averaging over 13 yards per catch, 614 yards. He has been fantastic. And obviously, some stars on the defense, Jackson Woodard, linebacker, Jalen Catalon at that third level, guys that are obviously maybe some regrets from that Syracuse game, I think, a couple weeks ago. But nonetheless, they played their tail off. They played their tail off all season. Looking forward to see them on a prime stage, a national stage. This is a big-time game trying to tackle one of the best players in, if not the best player in college football. It's going to be awesome.
And Ricky White, there are NFL scouts probably drooling because when I watch him play, I am just like, holy smokes. Okay, so he goes out, he's like, no, let me catch an 80-yard touchdown, let me do this, let me do that. Offensively, let me just, oh yeah, you can throw it to me whenever, I'm a mismatch with whoever I'm at. And then he's like going to go, all of a sudden go on special teams and just block a punt. Like, what? This dude actually is insane. He does everything, and he does it so well. Guys like that, I just love that the fact that he's a star receiver and is also playing special teams at an insanely high level. And it is a huge impact on the team. I mean, you saw it, in the Syracuse game when he blocked the punt. He was absolutely everywhere. At Boise State, what do you need, right? What do you need to win this game? Well, one, you got to get Ashton Jeanty going. Okay, obviously. That's rule number one, okay? Say you're not early, right? Say you actually find yourself behind because UNLV keeps scoring, right? And you find yourself down a possession or two. Maddox Madison is going to have to do things to move the football down the field. He's got to get guys like Austin Bolt. But that's why the run game's been so important because they've been so efficient throwing the ball with the play action. It's so important to that offense that they get that going. I'm actually going to take UNLV +3, and I'm going to take them to win this football game right here. I know it's going to hurt my Ashton Jeanty +1,000 Heisman ticket if that does happen, which, wow, would that be awesome. Might have to hedge that with Cam Ward here pretty soon, but I really like UNLV in the spot. I don't love UNLV's run defense, even though they have stopped the run in general. I don't think they played a ton of really good running teams, and even Syracuse was kind of able to find some leeway with Quinn Allen. And believe me,
And
Ashton
Kansas,
Jeanty
too. Back to Kansas.
Yeah,
Evan Neal, Jalen Daniels.
Yep, they did find some room there. So I think that stat is a little bit inflated by some of the lesser teams that they played. And Ashton Jeanty, we know he can run against anyone. All right, if you can run against Oregon, when Quinshon Judkins and that offensive line can't, I mean, yeah, you're a pretty dang good football player. So and Jeanty's coming off of a bye, like he's fresh. So it is scary. I don't love the fact that I'm on UNLV +3, but I'll take it. And I'll take it to win the game because I love. I think it's a more complete football team than Boise State.
I think being at home for UNLV is huge, and not necessarily. I think it's more so getting away from Boise. I think that game would have in Boise would be obviously very, very tough to play there. The blue turf, the fan base that they do have, like you said, UNLV rushing their rush statistics, right, are top quarter in the country, right? But I think some of that is a little bit skewed to some of the game script, right? They have jumped early on some of these teams they have played, and then also they've just played teams that don't love to run the football. So it just kind of works both ways there. But man, oh man, oh man, my thinking is like, do I feel good about taking Boise State if Jeanty doesn't go crazy? Because I feel like he is, and like part of me thinks he kind of has to. But what if he can't? Like you said, what do they have to do? Austin Bolt, right? We saw Cam Camper get going last week against Hawaii. Like, can they be explosive enough? Can they be consistent enough in the other facets of their game
It's a good group.
give them a chance? Yeah.
It's a good group of players.
It is. And I think part of it's not really about they don't want to have to do it. It's part of it because if you paid what they did and they invested in what they had to get Jeanty back, right? Wouldn't you use him too? He's the best player in the country, probably. So they'd be a fools not to, averaging about 10 yards per carry, which is crazy. And the fact that he's sustaining that is wild.
Which would be like top 10, by the way, you're going on pass yards per attempt. It took his rushing yards per attempt and made it passing yards per attempt. I'm pretty sure it'd be top 10 in the country in passing yards per attempt. That's how efficient this dude is. Like, it's literally more efficient There's like no other team in the country that's like that. Well, besides like the military schools, but it is actually no, that's not even true. It's more efficient to pass the ball because of the. Anyways, the point is, it is more efficient for them to run the football than it is to throw the football, and not a lot of teams can say that. Speaking of running the ball, an absolute piss ton. Notre Dame plays Navy at MetLife Stadium. I actually got a nice little tidbit right here from Blazing Down Her in the comment section 3 months ago when we posted our Notre Dame having the easiest schedule in college, one of the easiest schedules in college football. Which normally, obviously, we know that Notre Dame normally has a really good schedule. It just happened to play out that they played 2 service academies, and now, in hindsight, they had to play A&M on the road, Northern Illinois. Just kidding. The Florida State game ended up, not being a big one. USC still might be tough because it's on the road, but you got to play the 2 service academies. And Louisville is a pretty good team as well. Georgia State. It ended up being actually not an easy schedule as I thought it would be. So, but anyways, this guy said, for those wondering, Notre Dame plays Navy every year because during World War II, the Naval Academy more or less saved Notre Dame financially by hosting training on Notre Dame's campus and paid the school to keep them afloat. Therefore, as payback, Notre Dame plays Navy every year. The gray paint in Notre Dame Stadium is Naval Battleship Gray. Notre Dame is playing Army this year also because of the 100-year anniversary of the Grantland Rice Four Horsemen article. So normally Notre Dame doesn't play 2 military academies, but here we are. Also, the academies don't have large enough stadiums for big games, obviously, hence the neutral site. And fun fact, Notre Dame has never played Navy in Annapolis. So thank you for that comment. That was insanely informative. I did not know all of that. So that was just thought it'd be cool to share that. And look, if you guys have cool facts about your teams or cool traditions that maybe national coverers of college football like us don't necessarily know, please share it. It's awesome. We love hearing about that stuff. But regardless, back to the game. Notre Dame is favored by 12.5 points here. And Navy has been really, really frisky on the offensive side of the football. Can't say the same about the defensive side of the football. But if you slow the game down enough, right, and you generate enough explosive plays, like, Northern Illinois generated enough explosive plays, and you're able to shut down this run game for Notre Dame, which I know that their pass game has picked up in the last couple of weeks. Riley Leonard's played better football, but I don't know. Things get interesting. This is a small line for neutral site game, 12.5. Like, man, what are we talking about here? This is awesome football, man. 2 top 25 teams, Notre Dame Navy.
I think it's awesome. I think, first of all, it's really hard, I think, for power rankers, Vegas, et cetera, to put a number on Nevada and Army, especially. So, like,
Navy.
Wow, I'm so sorry. Navy, excuse me. Navy and Army to kind of figure out where they actually are. Obviously, they've been looking fantastic. The eye test tells you one thing. The numbers say the same thing as well. But I think it's hard to quantify where I think they're just kind of throwing out in the line that they can feel okay, that they can get, pretty even betting on both sides, which obviously is the goal for these, Vegas bookies or the Vegas websites, all that good stuff. Man, I don't know how I feel about this. On one hand, I go back to Louisville, right? And there's obviously no data point to compare Navy to anyone on their schedule, but if you want to talk about like creative offenses and like guys that can find ways to scheme points or to scheme schemes up against Notre Dame, against good defenses, it's a guy like Jeff Brom, and their running backs ran the ball very efficiently against Notre Dame. Obviously, they're in a loss, and potentially if they get out kind of behind like they did in that game, they kind of had to go away from them and more towards Tyler Shuck throwing the football. And obviously, Navy did not want to be in that same spot, right? But I do wonder how Notre Dame does if they do have to stop this run for 4 quarters, because you have to be so disciplined, you have to be so good, every single play. Otherwise, they will take advantage of you. Blake Horvath has been incredible. And we've seen some really good players come out of Navy the past couple of years, obviously, right? He is awesome. And they're also doing it through the air, too. Like 15 attempts, right? 13 attempts. You're going
Heidenreich? Dog.
Yeah, Heinrich's a dog, too. So, like, it's not just your one-trick pony. It's a very creative offense. It's very fun to watch. And they're obviously putting up big-time numbers against everybody. Now, this will be a different test for sure. A much different test. I was very impressed with Notre Dame last week, not only how efficient Riley Leonard was and how well they ran the ball against Georgia Tech, and then also how well they stopped that run. I think a big part of that was due to Haynes King potentially being out and the explosiveness he brings, but Zach Pyron's also very good with his legs as well, and they shut that run game down all game long. They caused turnovers. They wreaked havoc for 4 quarters against the Yellow Jackets there, oh man, this is a much different game than last year, right? It was Sam Hartman's first game. They were playing in Dublin, and they just stomped Navy. Just stomped Navy. This year, man, it's gonna be awesome. I think I'm just gonna take Notre Dame to win, and I'm just gonna take Navy to cover. I'm not trying to middle it here. I think this is gonna be one of those games that's just gonna be close, man. And I think if you give Navy just a little bit of momentum, a little bit of belief here, and just let them stay in this football game, it's gonna be hard to get stops in that fourth quarter if they are wearing you down.
I don't think Navy's defense is very good. I also think if there's one way to like absolutely just shut down, the triple option, it's like if you have really good interior defensive linemen and fast linebackers, like you're forcing to run away from the D tackles, right? Riley Mills and Howard Cross, and then you got some really athletic linebackers, and I think plus linebacker play that you maybe weren't as confident going into the season with for Notre Dame, but they've looked pretty good. All right, so I know you're missing some guys in the secondary. I think Jaden Mickey is gone, Benjamin Morrison hurt. So I think you're missing some guys there, but against a team like Navy, maybe that doesn't matter that much, right? But from a power rating perspective, I think maybe the market it's not high enough on Notre Dame in this game. I'll take Notre Dame to win and cover in this game. Not a best bet because again, it's hard to do that the whole game with. If you're asking a team to cover a big spread against a military school, it's like it's tough. There's special circumstances. Air Force and the way that they're playing right now, yeah, I can understand wanting to cover a spread against them or taking a spread to cover against them or one as big as this. But yeah, I'm gonna ride with Notre Dame here. I think they're gonna be able to run the football. This Navy defense has gotten shredded, right? And what happens, by the way, when that Navy defense has to keep going back on the field because their offense can't get anything going, right? I think that this is a kind of game where, yeah, there's a variable range of outcomes where Navy, one could win this football game, right? Because you had explosive plays from NIU that resulted in a lackluster pass game that resulted in Notre Dame losing that game against NIU. But I think there's a greater variance. There's a larger range of outcomes of Notre Dame that potentially blows them out, right? Given how this game script could go.
Yeah, and I think for Navy, you can't turn the ball over, right? You have to win that turnover battle. Like you
Which
said,
they haven't this year.
No. But like if you're going to be ultra aggressive in this game, like you can't be doing that. I do think you mentioned the defensive backs being out for them. That does concern me a little bit for Notre Dame. Maybe not going to be a huge drop off because you're going to be stopping the run a lot and kind of sending bodies there. But if you're in the triple option and you have to stop explosive plays, not only right making one-on-one tackles in the open field, but also one-on-one coverage down the football field, not falling for fakes, not biting here and there, not getting just flat out beat off the line of scrimmage and letting Navy and Blake Horvath and his receivers connect on deep passes down the football field. That could be a spot where you can, or if you are your safeties or your defensive backs that are new, right, and you're not quite communicating perfectly all throughout this football game, like, and you see all this misdirection, all this, and all of a sudden they leak them out. That could be where you steal a couple points, steal a touchdown here and there for Navy. This game, styles matter, right? If whoever can play their brand of football that they want to play, it's going to dictate how this game goes in the second half. Now, if it's a game in the second half, I want to ask you this. I told you right now, hey, it's going to be a 3-point game in the second half, and I don't know what happened.
In the fourth quarter?
In the fourth quarter, or late in the third quarter. Like, don't.
I like Navy.
It's not crazy because like I feel good
in a
about
close game like that.
Close them out, yeah.
In a close game like that, if you're telling me Notre Dame's offense is stalling out, I like Navy in that spot.
I want to ask you too. What do you think the crowd split's going to be? Because obviously, Annapolis is not far from Notre.
It'll be all Notre Dame. There's Notre Dame. It's such a national brand. They're everywhere. Those Catholics are all over the place.
Do you think? I wonder if Navy will travel. I wonder, or people just go and start rooting for Navy because why not? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it's top 25 matchup. Yeah, you never know. It's MetLife.
I hope it's some kind of evens, but I hope Navy has some kind of momentum that they can kind of gouge because selfishly, I think this would be an awesome. Just if it's a close game, I think it'll be awesome.
Texas is going to the place where SEC teams go to die. They're going to the doors. They're going to Nashville. Vanderbilt coming off of a maybe not a pretty win against Ball State. That was maybe swept under the rug when people decided to bump them up in the polls this week. But yeah, needless to say, Vanderbilt's coming off many a straight wins. Texas is coming off a bad performance. Twitter's blowing up about Quinn Ewers. I don't know if you saw that, CD, but a bunch of we're not even going to comment on it because we don't know. We don't know anything. It's Monday, so we don't know anything. We could post this tomorrow and things totally change. And Arch Manning is playing quarterback this weekend, but
I'm gonna take this as the Instagram post or Instagram post may or may not have been posted. Like I'm gonna take it as Quinn Ewers as quarterback going forward for Texas until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and honestly, in this game, it doesn't make a huge difference. It does make a difference in terms of straight up winning the football game, but in terms of like covering a big spread, I struggle here because Vanderbilt, their offense, they have not played a lot of great defense. Kentucky, I think, is a good defense, although I'm starting to question a little bit more with their performance, against Florida, right? And maybe Georgia, maybe Carson Beck has some games where he's just not good, right? Maybe that Kentucky team, as good as I thought their defense was going to be, maybe it's not that good. Who knows? So I'm starting, and also Vanderbilt's offense didn't look amazing. Diego Pavia just looked like a gamer, as always. So I struggle with the spread. I definitely think Texas is going to win this football game. They're not on my dirty dogs. I think this is where, Vanderbilt probably dies. The question is, is 18.5 points too much, CD? Is it?
I don't know. Part of me thinks, and listen, I really think I don't see this as like we're giving up for Texas. First of all, they have everything they want to still accomplish, including the SEC, right? Playoffs and obviously the national championship still ahead of them. I still think they're talented enough and good enough to do and accomplish all of those goals. I also trust their culture. It sounds like in their coaching staff and their program to get them ready, pick them up off the mat after a very disappointing loss last week, and be ready to go on the road. And I think you're almost kind of lucky that Vanderbilt's ranked and that Vanderbilt beat Alabama earlier because this could be a game where you could sleepwalk. But I think everyone knows right now the cat's out of the bag. Like you can't just walk into Vanderbilt and play your C game and guarantee a win. Now you could potentially do that and win, and you might be very close, whatever. I do think Texas is better than Alabama. I do think they're more equipped to beat a team like Vanderbilt. I was very impressed with their defense last week, even though I thought if Georgia were to win, it would be Carson Beck doing it. It turned out Georgia's defense was awesome against Texas. Vanderbilt's defense is not quite the same. Diego Pavia and that team is going to have to scheme up a lot to move the football in Texas. I don't see it happening. I think there's absolutely a path for Vanderbilt to make this football game, to cover and potentially have a chance to win the football game in the fourth quarter. I think more times out of not, Texas picks themselves out the map and they play good football, sound, clean football, and they get a win and they cover 18.5.
So you're having Texas cover.
Texas cover.
All right, I'll fade you there. I guess I'll take Texas to win. I'll take Vanderbilt to cover. Like the backdoor covers in play, right? 18.5 is a big one. I also think how good, are like Texas's receivers really at getting separation. And this isn't the worst secondary that Texas has played against this year at all. It's not gonna be the same level. I could see this, being a 38-21 type of game, right? Where Texas kind of lets it bleed. Maybe leans on some of those backs like Wisner. I'm gonna take Vanderbilt plus 18.5, but Texas to win straight up in Nashville. So I see why you're going that direction though. I don't blame you at all. I think that's all good points you make. I think Vanderbilt, again, Alabama. It's like I still don't even know how good they are. The SEC is pretty messed up right now. The SEC is pretty messed up, so it's hard for me to pick any game in the SEC with immense confidence.
I'm with you there too. I do think part of Georgia's success was that defensive line and how they were able to get pressure in Quinn Ewers very, very easy. You talked about Quinn Ewers struggling against pressure right? I do wonder if Vanderbilt and Clark Lee can scheme up similar pressure looks that Texas got. And I think Texas, I don't know how many defense lines they'll play where you don't feel good about their tackles and their interior guys just going one on one against a guy and getting beat, right? Like Vanderbilt, to me, I don't know if they have the guys along the line of scrimmage to get after, Quinn Ewers like Georgia did. And yes, maybe Texas wide receivers aren't quite as elite as we potentially thought they were in the portal. But I do wonder if they have a little bit more time to get separation, right? They could get immediate separation against Georgia because they didn't have a chance to. But I do wonder if they give him Quinn Ewers a little bit of time. He is a very good quarterback when he does have time, and that's my only concern here for Vanderbilt. Like you said, the backdoor cover absolutely in play. Am I selfishly rooting for Vanderbilt? Potentially. I think a lot of the country is, just because they're kind of turned into America's team here. And I think I will say a lot of teams get flack for like winning ugly. They were tied going into that fourth quarter against Ball State last week, and I think nobody even cared.
No one knew. No one was watching that game. Like they didn't play well. And Ball State, when I say bottom of the barrel, like we're talking the three worst teams in the country are probably Kent State, Akron, and Ball State. Is that crazy to say? Kennesaw State. So they're one of like the four worst teams in the entire country.
Yeah, no, that's not crazy at all. And yeah, a lot. Now they did obviously, I think, outplay them a little bit more than that score showed for sure. And they kind of got better as the game went on. But I don't know. It's just funny to see because we took Vanderbilt's over at 2.5, right? Pretty juiced, very heavily juiced. But we thought it was free because they were playing Alcorn, they were playing Georgia State, and Ball State. Three teams we thought were pretty bad.
Double-digit favorites.
Yeah, and we're like, okay, they can get those wins, and they can just win 3 games.
And they lose to Georgia State.
And we thought it was over. Now, actually, they beat Virginia Tech, so it didn't actually matter.
Yeah.
And whatever. And then they covered it after beating Bama, which is crazy. But it's interesting to see how, you didn't look great against Georgia State. You lost. You didn't look great against Ball State, and you barely won. And then, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I do wonder if a little bit inflated, and how good does that Bama win really, really look? Now, obviously, it's still very impressive.
It's wild. It's hard to. Can't believe we're taking away that Bama win. We're taking it away from Vanderbilt. We're taking it away. It was a bad win.
We won't.
No, just kidding. Vanderbilt's awesome. Can't wait for them to win. Just kidding. I don't think they'll win, but that'd be awesome. Literally, I'd be so happy coming back here and talking about Vanderbilt because then you have to talk about. Wait, yeah, Vanderbilt's kind of in the play for the SEC championship mix. I mean, not really, but
let me tell
if you beat Texas, Alabama, and Kentucky in the ways that you did, sure you lost it, and you lost Missouri in overtime. I don't even want to think about it. That'd be too crazy.
I do want to ask this too. Now, Vanderbilt historically has not been in a very tough environment to play in terms of compared to the rest of the SEC, right? That's no bold statement. That's just kind of what it is. I do wonder how rowdy it's going to be after a couple weeks ago, after the win against Kentucky, right? I do wonder if they're going to be able to put together a pretty substantial crowd and kind of be
rowdy over
there in Nashville.
They will. I think the school people will learn that I think the engineering majors there, I think, figured out that they have a football team, and that's pretty cool. So let's head over to the Big Ten now. Penn State going to Wisconsin. A Wisconsin football team playing better football right now? I mean, the spread's under a touchdown right now. Penn State, they've been winning ball games. Are we mega impressed with any of Penn State's wins? I mean, the comeback win against USC taught us that, hey, they can actually find another way to win, right? His name's Tyler Warren, right? Are you concerned about Penn State at all in this spot?
Absolutely. I mean, I was kind of like, hey, let's think about previewing this game because obviously Wisconsin at home, and that's obviously Alabama kind of went and did their thing, but that was also when you were still adjusting to Braden Locke. Taylor Van Dyke got hurt early in that football game.
Yep.
Braden Locke was still very new to the position, or new to this season, this team here, and even as USC, they struggled the week after. And then they've really turned it on since. Purdue, Rutgers, Northwestern. Now, none of these teams are world beaters. It's obviously going to be a dramatic step up with Penn State. but it's been very encouraging to see the offense move the football, run the ball the way they have, and the defense starting to play and round into shape. I think there's absolute cause for concern for Penn State. Absolute cause for concern. And by the way, there's a look ahead game. This is an absolute spot. Now, not that you're going to look ahead Wisconsin on the road there. I think James Franklin and these Penn State lines, they understand that the Big Ten landscape, that you can't look ahead this Wisconsin team. But I do wonder if part of them have just penciled in, we're going to have a top 4 matchup against Ohio State in a couple of weeks. Yeah, this is not crazy. This was a game that was circled months ago. People are talking about Wisconsin hosting Penn State, a chance to upset them in one of their games in Camp Randall. And all of a sudden, early the season started, and Wisconsin didn't look great, and Penn State was looking pretty good, and it's kind of faded away. But I think it's kind of getting more momentum, and there's reason the line's under 7. This game absolutely can be lost for Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about their defense. I mean, the secondary led by just a couple wagons back there.
Yeah.
Wagons in that secondary that have looked so good. In terms of the run defense, metrically, you look at it and you're like, okay, I'm not like mega impressed with it, but I haven't been unimpressed with it. I mean, that front 7, I think it's played pretty decent. I think Jaheim Thomas is all right. I think they got some football players there, dude, on the defensive side of the ball that I think can match up physically. And if Penn State is not able to run the football, they're not going to be able to throw. Like, if they get down in this game, Penn State gets down in this football game, they are not going to be able to throw the ball the same way that they were against USC. And you're on the road. Problem is, like, Wisconsin's offense, I know Braden Locke has looked better, but I'm going to take Penn State to win, Wisconsin cover under a touchdown is what I'm going to do. Where are you at?
Yeah, you said Penn State to win, Wisconsin to cover. I think it's going to be a 1 touchdown game, so I'll take that too. I think that's pretty good value there. Tyree Walker, right? How well can they run the football for Wisconsin? That's going to be huge in keeping Penn State off the field, keeping them in kind of press mode. I think we learned a lot from Drew Allar against USC, which was big time, and then the bye going into it, to see him when they have to throw the football, come from behind. He was able to do that. But like you said, it's a different secondary. These are different stars that they're going against. Ricardo Hallman and Hunter Wooler are absolute stars in the Big Ten. Do not let anybody else tell you otherwise. Not that anyone's saying that, but just no. I do love the athletes they have at linebacker to be able to stop this running game. And these athletic running backs that Penn State does have, I think it could get interesting. Braden Locke has to take care of the football. He has thrown interceptions in just about every damn game he has played, right? He has to take care of the football. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis this week for Wisconsin in practice. And by the way, you are starting to see a little bit more of those weapons outside of Will Pauling emerge. C.J. Williams, the former USC transfer. Vinny Anthony, right? Tretch Kekahuna. I always botch that. I'm so sorry, but Tretch is awesome. I'm not gonna try. Tretch is really good football player. He's a nice deep threat, very good athlete. That they kind of give him a different dimension in this offense here. Yeah, why not? Why not Wisconsin have a chance to win this football game? Braden Locke got to take care of the football, run the ball well with Tyree Walker, and yeah. Here's the thing. So Tyler Warren, Trey Wallace for Penn State, the wide receiver there. The matchups. Obviously, I like Hallman and I like the other guys for the wide receivers of Penn State. I don't think there's crazy mismatch there. Tyler Warren, no matter how good you are and how good you can scheme up, we've seen him just make plays over guys, and it doesn't matter if he's blanketed. That is the only.
Like, are you putting Wooler over him?
I don't hate it. The problem is, but then you lose Wooler in other aspects that makes him so good, and so that's the one thing that they're going to have to, kind of go back and forth. What's the pros and cons? When are we going to do it? When are we not? Can we blitz? Can we get after, them? That's going to be a big thing here in terms of getting pressure with just 4 or maybe 5 and have to bring an extra guy. But then you leave one-on-one for Tyler Warren, and that could be, that could be tough.
A disaster. Yeah. And, I mean, Wooler's not even like that big either. Was he like 6'2"? So, yeah, you don't really have a lot of guys that can match up with Tyler Warren, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they play that, but I think they can keep it within a touchdown. Heading back to the SEC. Yeah, this game at Kyle Field is going to be for first place in the SEC right now. Texas A&M plays host to LSU. They are 2.5-point favorites right now, with a lot of juice if you want to take them at -2.5. There's a really interesting matchup. LSU coming off what I thought was a really impressive win against Arkansas. Arkansas had been playing really good football. Their defense had looked really solid. Garrett Nussmeier came back from that Ole Miss game after looking a little shaky and has played 5 quarters of really good football, I think, these last 2 games. So if he goes in there, and look, you got, how bad is the injury to Shamar Stewart for Texas A&M, right? Chase Basant is fully healthy. Scooby Williams, who came off of a really good game. I know you have Damian Sanford there, linebacker, but what's the situation looking like there for Texas A&M defensively? Who's coming off a really good stretch. And Nick Gordon, by the way, has been banged up. A&M coming off a really good stretch of games defensively. And Connor Wigman, maybe a little less consistent in that Mississippi State game than you would have hoped, but it was on the road, right? We know Connor Wigman at home, outside of the Notre Dame football game, has been fantastic. He's been fantastic in home games. So there's a lot to look at here. Blake Baker has that defense going a little bit for LSU. What does that look like? Texas A&M with Le'Veon Moss in their run game has just been absolutely dynamic. The emergence of Jabri Barber all of a sudden on A&M's side, LSU, CJ Daniels finally emerged the week before, and before that, Aaron Anderson's been playing well. There's just a lot of storylines, a lot of things that we still haven't learned about either of these football teams. And the game is for first place in the SEC, if I didn't already mention that.
Yeah, definitely. I do wonder how Texas A&M secondary. We've talked about it a lot this season, this offseason, in terms of all the versatile pieces that they have. But it doesn't matter if you don't have guys that could just go out and flat out cover really good weapons and really good balls that are going to be thrown by Nussmeier. He puts the ball in beautiful spots. A lot of the times he throws the football. That's my one concern, I think, for Texas A&M, especially if Stewart's can't go and you don't have quite the elite pass rush and front four that you've had all season. That could be concerning, especially with the newfound emergence, like you said,
Right.
of a guy like Caden Durham. Right, that's a potential concerning spot there for Texas A&M. I do want to ask you this, unbiased Texas A&M guy, right? Is there a quarterback edge, and how significant is it if there is one for LSU? Right? Because here's the thing, like,
I think there is. Well, I'll give the weapons and the offensive line the edge, which I think gives Nussmeier that edge, right? So LSU hasn't given up a sack since the South Carolina game, right?
Yeah.
And you're losing Shamar Stewart in the pass rush, and you could look and be like, hey, Cassius Howell is still there, right? Really good pass rusher. But he's not an every down guy the same way Shamar Stewart is. He's not. And
Definitely.
Nick Gordon only played 40 snaps because he was banged up last week. So, and then in the secondary, like you mentioned, Willie, legit number 1 corner, right? Have no questions about him at all. Des Ricks is still young, right? And he's had his moments of brilliant athleticism, and you love it. In the slot, Jaden Hill is just absolutely stunk. He's been terrible. They're trying to get BJ Mays more in that game. Bryce Anderson's been playing terrible. It's been a lot of Marcus Ratcliffe and a lot of Dalton Brooks. Dalton Brooks being the guy who's absolutely emerged as a potential superstar in this secondary these last couple of weeks. And there's a lot. There's a lot going on in this game. I think I like LSU in this spot. I'm gonna take them plus 2.5 to beat Texas A&M in Kyle Field. It's gonna be a blackout game in Kyle
The
Field.
new uniforms? Are the uniforms going to be? Because I know they teased them over the summer. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be awesome.
Like, I think ticket poll. They're already almost like sold out, and it's like day one. So that's bonkers. That is literally bonkers. So there will be like 106, 107,000 people at this game. It is going to be rowdy. It is a night game. It's always dangerous in Kyle. And Connor Wigman has had success against LSU. Garrett Nussmeier has struggled at times on the road, although he didn't at Fayetteville. I'll take LSU this spot just because I think I like the matchup better. But here's the thing. If A&M wins this football game, their path to the SEC championship looks really nice, like really good, because you hold the tiebreaker over LSU, right? Who, they still got to play a couple more tough games, but then you get South Carolina on the road, which is scared of that game, right? Auburn on the
Everybody
road,
is.
which I'm feeling a lot less nervous about, and then you get Texas at home, who we just saw look really vulnerable against a team with good pass rush. So, and I've said it since the offseason that I like Texas A&M's matchup against Texas better than I like the matchup against LSU here. So I'll take LSU plus 2.5.
I'm gonna forgive you for stepping over New Mexico State in mid-November because they are
You're
not
right.
affecting the SEC standings. It won't affect the SEC standings, but we've seen them do their thing before. No, obviously, like you said, this is a massive, massive game. Who would have thought we're gonna be at this game October 28th, 26th, right? And it's going to be the two teams, the only two undefeated teams left in the SEC in conference play. I think a lot of these teams, both these teams, were kind of written off after week one, right? We saw Notre Dame coming to Cal Field. We saw LSU lose to USC, and everyone's like, okay, great, good season, and they'll be tough, and no one wants to really play them, but no one expects them to really be there when it matters in November. Yeah, the winner of this game and the loser, therefore, too, also has a chance to win, to still accomplish a lot of their goals, too. It's going to be fantastic. I loved asking you about Connor Wigman and Garrett Nussmeier. I'll say Wigman, the way he looked against Missouri was incredible. Now he has to play Missouri's former defensive coordinator, Blake Baker. I do wonder how that's going to go. Colin Klein, I've been very impressed with him as of late. I think since since Missouri, since Wigman got healthy, I think they've ran the ball well. They've had some good schemes. They pushed the ball down the field. Noah Thomas has gotten involved. That's been fun to see. But like you said, there are injuries on the defense side of the football that are concerning for Texas A&M. And if LSU's offensive line can play the way that they have recently this past month, yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I'll go LSU even on the road. Listen, taking top 10 teams on the road at A&M, at Cal Field is never a good thing, right? Never a good thing, right?
Despite what
But
the media will tell you. But yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. They just haven't been there. They just haven't been there. Regardless, though, it's going to be a massive, awesome, awesome game. In terms of ways for Texas A&M to win this football game, Le'Veon Moss, Le'Veon Moss, Le'Veon Moss. To me, that guy, if you can run the football, control this football game, and really lean on this defense, which kind of shut down a pretty damn good rushing attack in Arkansas last week with Jaquin Jackson and Taylor Green there, that would be
Banged up
massive.
Jaquin Jackson. But
And banged up Taylor Green. I'll say that too. Absolutely. But I do also think this is the best offensive line Texas A&M has played probably all year and probably since Notre Dame. And I that is going to be interesting because I think Arkansas, they leaned on Arkansas and they just took over that football game. And it was awesome. It's going to be a little bit different. You're going to have to win in certain ways. Your offense might have to bail you out in certain times here. A lot of pressure on Connor Wigman, a lot of pressure on Noah Thomas. I think running the football with Le'Veon Moss is going to be a big factor. I want to ask you this real quick. A&M's offensive line, how do you feel? I think they've been better late as of recent, right? That's been impressive to see, good to see for sure. Do you feel good about them in this matchup against LSU?
And I'm not like actually super familiar with like the personnel of LSU, and like I've watched all their games, and I don't know how they get to the quarterbacks as much as they do, but they do.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know.
Is Baker? Is it Blake Baker?
And they haven't played bad offensive lines either. Like, because I'm trying to look at that, I'm trying to be like, okay, like maybe they played. Well, USC's offensive line has been very much of a disappointment, but it wasn't just that game.
Especially.
You had 7 sacks against Ole Miss. You had 7. Now, I guess Ole Miss's offensive line has underperformed as well, but if Chase Basantis is not going, I feel less confident, in that spot. I think Crownover's been all right. It feels like he kind of really took over that spot at tackle. Trey Zune's been great this season. Coley at center has filled in awesomely for Naboo, and Armash Reed Adams is great. It's been a really good offensive line. And Connor Boygman gets rid of the football, right? He doesn't take a lot of sacks. It's just like, in a game where I feel like Connor Wigman has to outplay Garrett Nussmeier to win the game, given the injuries, the potential injuries. I'm not saying that any of those guys are playing or not playing, but regardless if they're banged up, I think you need a lot from Connor. And I don't know if we're going to get what they need from Connor, even though I think Connor's an exceptional quarterback. I really do. the weapons. If Jabri Barber steps up in the way that he did and Cyrus Allen stops dropping passes and Noah Thomas continues to play well, stretching the field, then yeah, absolutely. Texas A&M can win this football game. Texas A&M can literally, they're favored in this football game. Texas A&M can run the football if they get after the quarterback,
Yeah,
if they put Garrett Nuss, like literally A&M can win this football game. All right. I'm just not sure that they will. So I'll take LSU plus 2.5. And LSU to win, obviously. Cincinnati goes to Boulder. In what's kind of a big matchup in the Big 12 here, Colorado, dude, sneakily, all of a sudden, Colorado's playing good football, and the national media's kind of quieted down about it for some reason. You know, not that I haven't been like a Colorado hater myself at times. You know, I'm frustrated that they refuse to run the football a lot, but yeah, I mean, what's the status of Travis Hunter? You know, second straight game. You know, kind of meandering, kind of an injury situation there. I don't know if he's going to play. To be honest, I just haven't checked. Not that I'm like genuinely concerned or whatnot. I think it does matter, but I also do think that Colorado offensively, we've talked about this wide receiver room being so deep. They have the weapons, I think, to cover for Travis Hunter offensively. It's defensively in that secondary that I would concern. And I do think Travis Hunter's a better receiver than he's a corner, but I'm not sure if they have the depth pieces that they do on the offensive side of the football. Cincinnati's been playing good ball, dude. And you were a guy, CD, that's been all over Cincinnati this entire football year. Why do you like them so much?
listen, I think they're first of all, I can't believe I'm saying this. I think they're well coached in terms of they know what they are offensively. Not they know what they are offensively, and they kind of lean on it. Corey Connor's been awesome, right? They've got a good running game there. Brendan Sorsby is taking care of the football and been very good in the short to intermediate passing games. I'm still waiting on Xavier Henderson and those guys to move the football down the football field. And if you don't have Travis Hunter, and if you don't have this defense of Colorado in that secondary being totally healthy, that's where you could see some explosive plays happen, steal possession here and there from this Colorado offense. Because yes, and Cincinnati defense has played better this year for sure, and I love the way that they played against UCF a couple weeks ago. But you're gonna have to make stops, and you're gonna have to make some stops, but also play with Colorado. I feel really good about Deion Sanders. Excuse me, Shador Sanders moving the football with or without Travis Hunter. They're super deep there. I think the loss is much more significant, like you said, on that defense side of the football. I'm going to take Cincinnati because you give me a couple points here, right? We're picking it at 5.5.
5.5. Yep.
So I'm going to take Cincinnati plus 5.5, but I don't feel great about it. And I do think that this game could get to a blowout, right? Colorado could just jump on them the same way they did to UCF. But I also think that Cincinnati, what they can do offensively, moving the football in Colorado, taking their time, kind of bleeding Colorado and making them be super efficient. And if Colorado can't run the ball and close out football games, the backdoor cover is absolutely there if it is within, a 10 points or whatever it may be at the end of the fourth quarter. So I'll take Cincinnati, and I guess I'll just take them to win. Why not? If I'm there at 5.5, but don't feel great about it. And I've been on Cincinnati a lot. They've been on my count. They've been very good for me this year. But this game, it does concern me.
Can't get the pick game out of my head. Can't do it. I'll say Colorado.
Time ago.
Hey, it was a long time ago. Texas Tech moved the ball on Cincinnati. Pitt moved the ball on Cincinnati. Those are two really good offenses. I think Colorado's also going to be able to move the football. And they're at home, and I think they've played pretty well at home this season. Shador Sanders is playing really good football right now. I don't think enough people are talking about the level of football that he's playing at. It's very high. All right, it's very high. Cincinnati also. Here's what I like Cincinnati in this game. They can control the game. Colorado has done a good job getting teams off the field. Cincinnati has done a good job staying on the field on offense. Right? If you can control that game, control that time of possession, you got a real chance to win that football game on the road there. But I'll like Colorado 5.5. I think that there are some really nice weapons that can take advantage of some of what Cincinnati is lacking on the defensive side of the football. They've had a pretty decent pass rush this season from what I thought it was going to be. and Colorado's offense has been much improved, and in that aspect, they're still giving up they've still given up 25 sacks on the season, but I mean they've still taken care of the football decently. They're finding ways to stay on the field. Colorado is defensively is where they've really impressed me in the improvement from a year ago, particularly their run defense and the physicality that they've had in that front seven. I don't think the return of Shiloh Sanders is like really all that good. Who cares? But yeah, I kind of like Colorado in the spot. I think Cincinnati could absolutely win this game. And if Cincinnati, okay, let's play this. Colorado wins this game, right? Moving forward, are you feeling good about them and their chances to make the Big 12 championship game, not necessarily win it?
Yeah, they get a bye week to get healthy, right? To reevaluate themselves. And then they get Texas Tech on the road, who looked very vulnerable last week against Baylor, especially defensively. Utah, who is unrecognizable right now. Kansas and Oklahoma State, two of the bigger disappointments of the Big 12. It is absolutely right there. Now, it won't matter if BYU and Iowa State just run the table, right? It just won't matter because they'll both be undefeated. But in terms of what they can do to control their own destiny, what they can do to put themselves in position to potentially go to the Big 12 championship, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I do think Cincinnati is probably their second or first best team, best on their available on their schedule. This might be their toughest game left on their schedule, especially if it is with a banged up Travis Hunter. Dion was talking about, how it didn't look right. He couldn't make a play on one ball because of his shoulder injury, and they kind of took him out. Now, it was a blowout early, and so they didn't really need to put him back in. And I'll see. It'll be interesting to see how careful they are with him. They have not been careful with him because, right, even last year you saw him come back from injury and play a ton of snaps. So he's obviously wants to play a lot. He's obviously a tough competitor. He's an unbelievable football player. But obviously, hope he's healthy and all right because he is one of the game's best, and that's what you want to see in these matchups here. But Cincinnati, like you said, control the football, run the ball well, make some plays, get off the field on third down, try to get Sanders thrown in tight coverage, and try to get he does take some risks. He does, and he throws the ball really well, and he has a lot of confidence in himself, which he should because, like you said, he's throwing the ball very well. But he can put himself in bad situations, and if you could take advantage of them, short fields here and there, and kind of jump on him early, maybe you have a chance here. But like you said, Colorado's been playing well at home. I don't feel good about my Cincinnati pick, but I'm going to take it because I think they've just been playing good football. Complimentary football is what it's been.
Colorado's only lost at home this season, by the way. Well, I guess is it their only loss of the year? Yeah, they're only no. Their only home loss this year. They did, and that was on the road. Their home loss was Kansas State, where they had a lead with a couple minutes left in the game. It's a pretty solid team. So, other game, I mean, the Magic's happened there. The Baylor OT shenanigans.
Yeah, holy cow.
Yeah, I'm ready for Colorado to get a home win. A nice one aside from that Baylor one here. Let's get over to the Dirty Dogs. Like I've said, probably my favorite segment that we've been doing because we've been on a heater. What is the Dirty Dogs? It's a segment where CD and I take two underdogs each to win straight up. So what's the caveat? Okay, sure. You can just pick an underdog. Anyone can do that. 10-point underdogs.
Or more, baby. Or more.
That is there are some mores on here for sure. That's the threshold here that we're playing with. On the season, we are 8-24 on the season. Picking straight winners. If you don't know, that's 25%. That's kind of nuclear. I think the implied probability of a plus 300 game is 25%. We've been picking, games that are even more. We've been doing really well. Okay, if you were to follow us and just bet those straight up, you'd be up well over 7 units right now. So,
which we don't advise.
Kind of crazy.
This is strictly for fun. It's also a good test. Do it along with us, right? Find some vibes, find some scenarios where it's
schedule dynamics.
Really look into these matchups and find certain areas that maybe Vegas can't just power rate this game a lot closer because they want even money on both sides. But maybe you see an edge here, a team struggling, backup quarterback, whatever it may be, schedule dynamics. It's a lot of fun. We've been having a blast with it. We hope you guys are having just as much fun too.
Because a lot of people are just love doing their money line parlays. Like, oh, minus 480, minus 480, minus 510. No,
These will screw
you
you
got to
up,
be
man.
careful. You have to be careful in college football. And look, we both hit our dirty two one. We both hit two. Sorry, we both each hit a dirty dog. So 2 over 4 last week, which is nuts, by the way. But you hit the smellier one. New Mexico State plus 360. I only hit Old Dominion plus 300. So that means you're going to get the first pick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I look at the board here and I really don't love it. I was itching to take Nebraska plus 1800. I couldn't do it because I felt like I was potentially just throwing money away. I might be kicking myself this time come Sunday, but I'm going to start off with two teams that are just not playing good football. And sometimes when I'm looking here, I'm like, two teams that are not playing good football, maybe the underdog has a chance to win it. I did that last week with UAB and Southern Florida, and UAB had a real chance to win that football game. I'm doing that again here. Missouri on the road against Alabama. Plus, I think it's 400 on the
400.
dot there. Pretty stinky. Listen, man, I know Missouri's not very good. I know they struggled against a bad Auburn team. But a lot of that game was Drew Pine. And when Brady Cook came back in, he kind of jolted that team. I think Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel can get some stuff working on the ground. I was
Hopefully Nate
impressed.
Noel's healthy, by the way. I don't know what his status is, but either way, Marcus Carroll is a good running back. So
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I thought was going to be the lead back coming into the year. But regardless, that's big. I like the way that they handled Jarquez Hunter, one of the better running backs in college football, especially the SEC. And we know Alabama cannot run the football right now. And now, if they can and they run the ball well and the defense plays well, this game obviously not going to happen. But I do think there's a pretty realistic chance for Missouri to get a win here.
I think so too. It's not crazy. Not crazy at all. I'm going to go over the West Coast. This is not as smelly as yours. I'm going to go Oregon State plus 310 against a team that cannot buy a win. It's California. I like
Yeah.
California. I think they're a good football team. We've talked about them a lot on this show. We've previewed a couple games of theirs. We've taken them in the Dirty Dogs with great success. But I don't think they've won a game since I took them as a Dirty Dog. Have they won a game since the Auburn game? Yeah, they definitely have. They definitely have. But they've struggled the last couple weeks, particularly in the second half of games. I think Oregon State isn't a bad football team, guys. I really don't. I think they've just been caught playing a couple good teams so far. I think Jemani McCoy is pretty solid. I like Trent Bray as a coach there. Hankerson is a pretty good football player. I think they might be able. They got a chance to be able to run the ball. I think against this Cal team.
Yeah.
If they're going to slow this game down, and Cal without potentially Jay Knott again, are you going to rely on Mendoza to not turn the ball over? And when Cal's up in this football game, are you going to rely on them to run the ball to close this game out? Because they haven't been able to close out games recently. So I'll take Oregon State plus 310.
I don't hate that. The path to victory there for a double-digit dog is absolutely there for Oregon State against California. Cal, like you said, struggling to win football games, struggling to close out football games. Winning is learned, and winning is hard, and they're finding that out. I do wonder, and what strayed me away from that game was a team I think well coached, Justin Wilcox, back against the wall. That's my only concern there because they need this game if they still want to make a bowl game going
Yes.
forward. Moving on to mine, I'm going to the Big Ten here, and I'm going not only a dirty dog, but a smelly game in general. Northwestern at Iowa. Look away if you like offense, but if you love tough football, defense, Big Ten West, old Big Ten West games, this is for you. And I think Northwestern, the spread's around 14. I'm getting the money line plus 460 here. I don't hate that at all. Iowa, we saw last week, kind of get bodied by Michigan State for 4 quarters. That game could have been even uglier in that first half. Northwestern just kept kicking themselves in their own foot, and whatever it was, they just could not get the ball in the end zone, could not score against Wisconsin last week. I think Losh is super frisky. I think he's very fun to watch. I think Cam Porter, if he can, make some explosive plays happen. Bryce Kurtz, they've got some guys there that can make this a football game. And if you can stop Caleb Jackson, right, or Caleb Johnson, nobody has, right? Nobody has. You're going to have a chance to win this football game. Michigan State showed us that last week. Obviously, Northwestern has a tall task ahead of them. Damon Walters, Mac Uline, those guys are going to have to play well. Up the middle, their defense, Xander Mueller, play better than they potentially have as of late. against the run in this football game, but I do think in terms of chances for a double-digit dog to win, right? Northwestern playing against a bad offense, right? Or at least throwing the ball offense, be one-dimensional offense, absolutely there for this to be a close game in the fourth quarter, and then for Northwestern to steal one in Iowa City.
Yeah, since they put in Jack Lausch, it's looked a lot better. Although caveat here that AJ Henning, I believe, is hurt, so he won't be playing. And he has been their better receiver of late, finally. Kind of a breakout situation for him, but unfortunately got hurt last week. But they still have other guys. It's not like it's been the AJ Henning show. It's just like, oh, it's been nice to see the productivity from the former 4-star, Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. But I like this pick better. Central Michigan, plus 380, playing against Miami, Ohio. Here's what I like. I like teams that can run the absolute piss out of the ball. Against teams that, actually Miami Ohio's done a decent job stopping the run. Their offense, though, hasn't looked great all season. I know Central Michigan's defense is bad, but if you're going to give me a team that's playing pretty good offense for MAC standards on the road, action, stuff happens there, dude. 10-point spreads are nothing. I like Central Michigan this spot quite a bit, actually. And Miami, Ohio, they've done a good job with most teams stopping the run, but against teams that are pretty decent running the ball, they have been susceptible to the ground. This is a low-scoring game. Not only can Central Michigan cover 12.5, I think Central Michigan can maybe sneak one out here against a team that, is definitely playing better football. They had a really tough out-of-conference slate, and an early MAC slate that they've done a pretty good job handling. And obviously Miami, Ohio is way better than their record shows. But I kind of like Central Michigan in this spot if you're going to give me plus 380.
Don't hate that. The MAC is where 10-point favorites go to die, right? Like we've seen that time and time again. I don't hate that at all for you. Central Michigan well coached as well up there. Yeah, why not? The chip was.
Yeah, the only MAC team that we've hit on the Dirty Dogs this year was a Toledo plus 360 against Mississippi State early in the season. And surprisingly, we've only taken, this is only the third MAC team that we've taken all year. So
well, it's also been like now we're really getting into the MAC conference.
We're getting into MAC.
Now we're getting into some slate, learning a little bit more about each of these teams. So I love that for you.
So there it is. To recap for the Spotify listeners, we got Missouri plus 400 for Christopher. He also has got Northwestern plus 460 against Iowa there. Missouri's playing Alabama. Of course, I didn't mention that. Oregon State, I got for plus 310 playing against Cal on the road. And I got Central Michigan plus 380 on the road against Miami, Ohio.
I will say 4 road dogs. A little bit concerning. But we do love
that's what makes them dirty.
They
some road dogs. They some road dogs. Well, it's not like we haven't hit road dogs before in the past, although last week we did well with the home underdogs. The week before, I had Vanderbilt plus 440. That was a road dog against Kentucky. Although Lou Monroe is a home dog, JMU is a home dog. Or JMU beat North Carolina on the road, didn't they? Toledo beat Mississippi State. I think that game was on the road. California, I got plus 400 on the road. Yeah, actually, we've had some road dogs on here. We've had some road dogs. Let's get into the best bets, shall we? Let's head over to the counter. All right, CD and I'm going to spoon feed you our plays. The recap on the year, I'm 28-20. Giving you these best bets, serving you up plus 5.48 units on the year. CD serving you up 21-18, plus 1.11 units. Coming off a bad week and a week where we both loved the board. Got absolutely spat on in our face. And we're coming back. Neither of us love the board this week, but that's just what makes it. That's just what it is, That's just what college football is. Week 9. But here we go. You've got more picks than I do, so I'm gonna let you lead us off here. How about it?
Yeah, why not? I've got a rebound here for sure. Talking about road teams here. We're gonna go with another one. SMU at Duke. SMU minus 11. I think Duke is a little bit overrated. I think their record a little bit misleading. SMU's been playing great football. Their one loss is to a BYU team that turned out to be maybe a pretty good loss for them in the out of conference. There, SMU has not a pretty clear path, but an absolute path to the ACC championship game, and it starts this week with Duke making a statement on the road.
They're hot, dude. They're hot. That's a team I took their under on their season win total. Yikes! Ever since like they went with Kevin Jennings, they looked really good. And their defense, honestly, I've been impressed with. I was very skeptical of their defense, but it's looked really good. And Duke is due to get pounded, dude. They should be 3-4 right now. But alas. My first pick is gonna be Toledo minus 2.5. Took them last week. Bang! Against Northern Illinois. Toledo, you know what Northern Illinois is good at? Stopping the run, actually. And you know what Toledo did? They didn't abandon the run game like they have almost all year. They play a Bowling Green team. This time, I believe it's at home. And Bowling Green is susceptible to the big play in the run game. If Toledo sticks with the run game, and I also like the way that our guy, Alan Stewart's playing over there, slinging the pill at quarterback. I like Toledo's spot right here, minus 2.5. I still think that they're the best team in the MAC. Power ratings would tell you that Bowling Green may be slightly better. I disagree. Give me the Toledo Rockets, minus 2.5 against Bowling Green.
Yeah, going back to the American. I haven't been there for a couple weeks. Going to find success. Tulane at North Texas here. I know North Texas was pretty impressive in this game last weekend against Memphis, but I like Tulane in the spot coming off a bye. I like their defense and John Summerall and what they can do against this North Texas attack. And if you could stop them, you could get them in turnover issues, which they have had. You can really pile on the score. Tulane minus 7.5.
That's not crazy. I thought about it. I just can't bet against North Texas. I just can't do it. Something about them, I can't do it, man. Chandler Morris they're too frisky. It's too volatile for me. But speaking of volatile, yeah, as I'm saying, no, betting against North Texas is too volatile. Let me take you to Southern Miss James Madison, where a coach just got fired. James Madison's made some really bad teams look really bad this year, and I anticipate that being the case. They're coming off a bounce back game right here. Give me James Madison. It's a huge spread, minus 24. I'm laying it. Believe it or not. Give me the Dukes.
Yeah, that the new coach scared me away from that one. Otherwise, I was going to be snatching up that pick there. I'm going to the ACC cross-country travel here. Another road favorite. Wake Forest minus 2.5 on the road to Stanford. All the way across country there. Listen, I know that scares you. It does. And it scares me a little bit. I won't lie. But listen, I do think Wake Forest, I've been impressed with the way they've been playing the football. I like their offense right now. I think they can outscore Stanford. I don't love the way Stanford's playing at all right now in any facet of their football team. Wake Forest goes on the road, gets a win, and moves inches closer to bowl eligibility, which I think is a realistic goal for this football team, which is awesome.
Yeah, I like that spot. I really like Wake Forest. I bet against them earlier in the year. I took Virginia plus 2.5. I think Virginia came back, won that game, and they probably shouldn't have. Wake Forest should have won that game. Wake Forest looked impressive in a lot of different games. So I don't think that's a bad pick at all. I'm gonna go back to this was gonna be Old Dominion minus 2, but guess what? I wasn't feeling great about it. I needed to get to 5. And previewing Syracuse UNLV, previewing Syracuse and Pitt, I convinced myself. Give me Syracuse plus 6.5 over there in the, I guess not the mustard bottle anymore. Acrisure.
Yeah, listen, I don't hate that at all. I was on Syracuse as well in that game. You gave them 6.5. Obviously, like you said in that video, check it out if you are just watching this cut up here. You would love the hook. You would love 7. You'd love the hook there, 7.5. But you get what you can get here. You feel pretty good about their chances to go up and upset Pitt. They're bound to lose at some point. They're due.
Yeah. It's not getting to 7 either. If you're going to get at 6, this is the time to get at 6.5. It's getting bet down.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I'm going to stick in the ACC here. I'm going to go big favorite here. Florida State at Miami, Florida. Give me Miami, Florida. The Hurricanes minus 20.5. I think Florida State's a terrible football team. I think Miami's a good football team. Let's lock it up.
I'm with you. Let's go. Miami minus 20.5. Come on.
I will say in games that Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna mush it. I'm not gonna mush it. But listen, when we like things, it tends to work out pretty well. Throughout this season, Cam Ward, significant quarterback matchup advantage. I think Miami, Florida, their defense, right? I think their defense takes a step in this football game. They have struggled as of late. I think their defense takes it personally. I think that they find some things and skill tree, et cetera, et cetera. There's too much talent on that defense to let Florida State hang in this football game. I think you want to get them out early. This is personal for Miami. This is a big recruiting game. Yes, you have to dominate them. 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
I believe we're something like 5-3 on the year in games that we both like and take. I don't have the exact number, but I think it's around there.
Positive.
Actually, we were 5-1 until last week.
Yeah,
we got screwed by South Carolina, Oklahoma under. That was brutal, and BYU -9.5. So yeah, I like that spot. And then you have one more.
Yeah, I got 2 more actually. Utah at Houston. I like the under in that game, 37. I know it's a low line. I think both offenses are not very good, and I think if Houston and or Utah wants to win this whole game, they kind of have to muddy it up. Turnovers does concern me for sure, as in whenever you're taking an under, that may kill you. But listen, I think I feel pretty good about this game, being in the teens and hanging on at 37. And then Kansas at Kansas State. Give me Kansas State -9.5. They're playing better football. Kansas is just really struggling right now. I think Kansas State needs this win and to look good in this game and continue boosting their resume in the Big 12 and staying alive for a playoff spot. Yeah, Kansas State -9.5.
All right, I got one more. Central Michigan +12.5. Already talked about them, the Dirty Dogs. Miami, Ohio, road dog. I don't care. Yeah, I got 2 road dogs in my best bets. Yeah, I got 2 road dogs in my Dirty Dog segment. I don't care. Let's go. They run the football well for all the reasons that I mentioned before. But I guess we cut these up, so I guess I'll re-explain some of the gist for folks that are just watching our best bets video alone by itself. Yeah, Central Michigan's run the ball really well, and their offenses looked really good relative to other offenses in the MAC. I think that's a recipe for disaster for some teams. I think Miami, Ohio is better than their record says they are. But look, Gabbert hasn't been incredible this year. And Miami, Ohio has been, I'm not going to say completely susceptible to the run, but I think Central Michigan can play a football game. And by the way, Central Michigan has played some god-awful games on special teams where they just fumble the football for like no reason. Just give it away. If they just figure out, and they've hung really close in some games too. Here, let me give you some scores of the recent games, and not that that's what I'm betting this off of, but Eastern Michigan, sure, they lost by 4 on the road. Ohio, they lost by 2 at home. San Diego State, they won by 1. Ball State, they won by 3. Illinois, they kept it within. It was 21. They kept it within 3 touchdowns. They might have covered the spread there actually, and yeah, I think they're playing better football as the season's gone on. They've stabilized that quarterback position. Central Michigan +12.5. Give me some action. So that's going to do it for our Week 9 preview. Previewed games, did our dirty dogs, did our best bets. We love it. Make sure you stick around. Maybe if you like the content, like the video, the simple rule that we got here, make sure that you also subscribe. Join the fam. We like having you guys around. Like, we love interacting with you guys, as you saw earlier during our Notre Dame Navy segment. We love hearing from you guys. We learned so much from you guys. Like, you don't understand, like, sure, like, we like to boast our knowledge, and we like to dive into the research, and we give you value with our knowledge, I think, and our previews. We like to think that we give you guys value. That's why we do this. But you guys give us value too. So if you would just interact with us in the comments, let us know what your thoughts are. Maybe some key stats, maybe some key injuries, maybe some key coaching staff changes, matchups, scenarios, all that stuff. I just think it's all really interesting. So I appreciate you guys sticking with us in this community and making it a better place on the Redshirt Sophomore. So make sure to stick with us for the recap when we come back here Monday. So CD, anything for us on the way out?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you guys enjoyed. We've been having a blast doing this all season. I want to retweet everything Matthew said. And yeah, that's about it.
We'll see y'all in the next one.